The capital city was still recovering. The battle had ended, but the scars remained broken walls, burned fields, and the silence where once there was life, yet in the hearts of the people. A new hope was growing. Ren stood on the palace balcony, looking out over the city. The sun shone warmly on the crystal towers, reflecting light across the streets. For the first time in many years, peace seemed possible. Queen Mira joined him, her face calm but tired. "You have done more than anyone could ask," she said softly. Ren shook his head. "I only did what was needed. Your people fought bravely." Mira smiled. "Together, we are stronger." In the weeks that followed, the Queen and Ren worked to rebuild. Trade routes reopened, farms were replanted, and families returned to their homes. Ren met with leaders from nearby planets, offering friendship and support. He also began training a new generation of soldiers, not just Viewership, but humans and others from across the Alliance. His lessons focused on teamwork, respect, and learning from each other's strengths. The soldiers listened with respect. Many had once doubted Ren, but now they called him a hero. One day, Ren was called to a meeting with the council. The chamber was full of voices, some worried, some excited. A senior diplomat spoke first. "The attack by Corthan was a warning. Other warlords may see our weakness and strike next." Another voice added, "We must prepare not just for defense, but for alliances beyond our borders. The galaxy is full of powerful forces." Ren nodded. "We will strengthen our ties. I suggest sending envoys to the Human Federation and other planets. United, we will be harder to defeat." The Queen agreed. "You will lead the delegation. Your knowledge of their ways is valuable." Ren traveled to Earth, the home of humanity. For the first time in many years, he walked among the busy cities and green parks, feeling both familiar and new. He met leaders and scientists, sharing stories of the battle and the new alliance with the Viewership. The humans welcomed him warmly, proud to see one of their own honored across the stars. During his stay, Ren visited old training grounds and met with his former commanders. They were eager to hear about the new world he helped save. Back on Viewership, the Queen worked to unite the different cultures of her empire. She invited ambassadors from many species to a great council where they discussed trade, peace, and shared knowledge. The palace once again became a place of learning and cooperation. Not just politics and war, but peace was never easy. One evening, a message arrived, an urgent warning from a distant colony. Strange ships had appeared near their planet. The ships showed no flag, and their actions were aggressive. Ren studied the report. "We must investigate quickly. If these ships belong to another warlord, they may be testing our alliance." The Queen agreed. "Prepare a team. You will lead the mission." Ren gathered a crew of experienced soldiers and diplomats. They boarded a fast starship, leaving the bright skies of Viewership for the unknown. As they approached the distant colony, the strange ships appeared on their sensors. They moved silently, cloaked in shadows. Ren's heart tightened. This was not the end of their troubles. The team made contact with the colony's leaders and learned more about the mysterious ships. They were unlike any known fleet, fast, silent, and deadly. Ren warned the colony to prepare defenses. He sent messages to Earth and the Viewership homeworld, calling for support. During the long nights in space, Ren thought about what he had become: a warrior, a leader, and a symbol of unity. He remembered his quiet days before the war and the choice he made to fight for peace. He was ready for whatever came next. Back on Viewership, Queen Mira watched the stars, hoping for her husband's safe return. Together, they had built a new future. But the galaxy was still full of shadows. The distant colony's warning had turned into a full alarm. Strange ships surrounded the planet like a dark storm. Their weapons were powerful, and their tactics were unlike anything the Alliance had seen. Ren stood on the bridge of his starship, watching the enemy fleet move closer. His face was calm, but his mind was sharp and ready. Around him, the crew prepared for battle. "This is it," Ren said quietly. "We fight not just for this colony, but for every world that believes in peace." The enemy ships opened fire. Bright beams cut through space, striking the colony's defenses. Explosions lit the darkness. The Allied ships answered with their own weapons. But the strange fleet moved fast and attacked in unexpected ways. Rin took command of the fleet's maneuvers, guiding the ships with expert skill. Focus on their command ship, he ordered. If we take it down, their fleet will lose direction. The Allied ships move as one, weaving through fire and debris. As the battle raged, Rin's ship was targeted by enemy fighters. The small ships darted around, trying to break through the shields, removed to the weapons console. His hands steady, activate pulse cannons, fire at will. The ship's cannons roared, striking down the attackers one by one. Suddenly, a huge explosion rocked the starship. Alarms blared. The enemy had hit the engine core. Rin stayed calm. Divert all power to shields. Prepare for emergency maneuvers. The crew worked quickly, stabilizing the ship. Rin's voice was steady, giving orders and encouragement. With the ship damaged, Rin made a bold choice. Prepare boarding party. We take the fight inside their command ship. The crew nodded, ready for the dangerous mission. Rin led the boarding party through space, using small fighters to reach the enemy ship's hull. They landed in a quiet docking bay and moved silently through dark corridors. They fought enemy guards with skill and precision, avoiding traps and using surprise to their advantage. Finally, they reached the command center. The enemy leader, a tall figure in dark armor, stood waiting. Rin stepped forward. This ends now. Your fight against peace is over. The enemy leader laughed. You are brave, human, but bravery alone will not save you. The two clashed in a fierce fight. Rin moved quickly, using both strength and strategy. His years of training and experience showed with every move. The battle was long and hard, but Rin finally disarmed the enemy leader. Yield, Rin said. The enemy lowered his weapon, defeated. Back on the colony, the enemy fleet began to retreat. The Allied ships cheered as the dark storm lifted from the planet's skies. Rin returned to the bridge, tired but victorious. The Queen's voice came over the comms. You have done what many thought impossible. You have protected the Alliance and proven that together, we are stronger. Rin smiled. We fight for all who believe in peace. This is only the beginning. In the days that followed, the Alliance grew stronger. More worlds joined the cause, inspired by the courage of humans and viewership. Rin and the Queen stood side by side, ready to lead their people into a future filled with hope and strength. The human who once seemed quiet and ordinary had shown the galaxy is true might not just in battle, but in the power of unity and trust. The deep black of space was silent, but inside the human starship's solar wing, the air hummed with soft vibrations. The ship slowed as it approached the blue and gold world of Velora. From a large window in the control deck, Markin stared at the alien planet. Vast seas shimmered like glass, and land masses glowed under three bright suns. Even from orbit, Velora looked alive, breathing with storms, rivers, and winds. Markin was not a soldier. He was a human envoy and official messenger sent by the United Earth Council. His mission was simple on paper: meet the ruler of Velora, deliver requests for alliance, and return home. But everyone aboard the Solar Wing knew Velora was not like other worlds. The Velari people were proud warriors, famous across the stars for their skill in battle and their unwillingness to bow to anyone. Captain Rallis, a tall woman with sharp eyes, stepped beside Markin. First time seeing Velora, she asked. Markin nodded. It's a beautiful and dangerous, I think. Both are true, the captain replied. Remember, their queen does not welcome outsiders easily. Be careful what you say and do. Not show fear. The ship entered the planet's atmosphere, gliding through golden clouds. Below, massive stone towers rose from the ground like mountains shaped by careful hands. These were the cities of the Velari, built to last for centuries. When the Solar Wing landed in the main spaceport, Markin felt a sudden weight in the air. Gravity was stronger here, and the heat was dry. Waiting for him at the base of the landing ramp were two armored Velari guards. They stood nearly a head taller than him, wearing armor of black metal and silver patterns. One guard spoke in a deep voice. Human envoy, the queen awaits. Follow. Markin walked between them. his boots clicking against the polished stone floor of the port. Outside, crowds of Velari watched him with curiosity. Their eyes were bright gold, their hair silver or bronze, their skin in shades from copper to pale stone. Every one of them looked like they could fight a war without hesitation. The path led to a massive palace at the heart of the city. Its walls were carved with scenes of battleships exploding in space, warriors standing against monstrous creatures, and at the center of every carving, a single figure, a tall Velari woman in shining armor, her sword raised high at the palace gates. The guards stopped and spoke to the herald inside. Moments later, the doors opened, revealing the throne hall. Markin's first sight of Queen Thalira took his breath away. She stood at the far end of the hall, not sitting on her throne, but facing her warriors as they discussed something urgent. Her armor was silver and blue, shaped to allow movement in battle, and her black hair was bound in long braids decorated with small metal beads. Her eyes, a deep molten gold, turned toward Markin as soon as he entered. The hall fell silent. The herald's voice echoed, "Markin of Earth, envoy of the United Human Council, seeks audience." Thalira's gaze was sharp, studying him from head to toe. She spoke in a voice that carried easily across the vast hall. "A human. I have heard of your kind, clever, restless, always reaching for more. Why have you come to Velora?" Markin bowed slightly, as was the custom in Velari diplomacy, but kept his back straight. "Your Majesty, I bring a message from my people. We wish for peace and friendship. We wish to stand with the Velari, not against them. We face a common enemy, the Dravic swarm, alone. Neither of us may survive their expansion. Together, we might." At the mention of the Dravic swarm, several Velari warriors stiffened. These were not enemies to be taken lightly. Thalira took a slow step forward. "Peace and friendship, words are easy. But standing with the Velari is no small thing, human. Our allies fight beside us in battle. They share our dangers. They prove themselves in our trials. Do you think you can do this?" Markin met her gaze. "If that is what it takes to earn Velora's trust, yes, I will stand with you." A murmur ran through the hall. It was rare for an outsider to accept such a challenge without hesitation. Thalira smiled not warmly, but with a spark of interest. "Then hear this. I will grant you a chance. You will face the trial of honor. Complete it, and you will earn the right to stand beside me in war. Fail, and you will leave Velora, never to return." The trial of honor? Markin had heard of it. Few outsiders had attempted it, and none had succeeded. It was a test of endurance, cunning, and courage set in the harshest part of Velora's deserts. "I accept," Markin said firmly. The Queen's eyes narrowed as if weighing his words. Then she turned to one of her commanders. "Ryan, you will guide the human to the edge of the trial grounds. Ensure he understands what awaits him." Ryan, a broad-shouldered warrior with scars across his cheek, stepped forward. "As you command, my queen." Thalira faced Markin one last time. "No. This, human on Velora. We respect deeds, not promises. If you survive, you will have my respect. If you die, you will be remembered for your courage. Choose well how you fight." Markin nodded. Inside, his heart pounded, but he kept his face calm. He had not come all this way to turn back now. As Ryan led him out of the hall, Markin could feel the eyes of every Velari on his back. Some were doubtful. Some looked almost eager to see him fail. But in the crowd, he thought he saw something else. Curiosity. Outside the palace, the suns were beginning to set, casting long shadows across the stone streets. Ryan walked beside him in silence for a while before speaking. "You are bold. Human, many come here thinking they can impress the Queen with words. None have dared to take the trial so quickly." "I didn't come here to talk," Markin replied. "I came to prove humans can stand beside the Velari." Ryan glanced at him, and for the first time, there was the hint of a smile. "Then prepare yourself. The desert does not forgive weakness, and the Queen, she does not either." The city faded behind them as they approached the edge of the vast Veloran desert. Somewhere out there, beyond the dunes and canyons, the trial of honor waited, filled with dangers no human had ever survived. Markin took a deep breath. Whatever happened next, his journey had truly begun. The wind of the Veloran desert was dry and sharp, carrying the taste of dust. The horizon was a sea of gold and red, stretching far beyond sight. Markin stood at the edge of this endless land, his boots sinking into soft sand. Beside him, Ryan tightened the straps of his armor and glanced toward the west, where the suns were sinking into a deep orange sky. "This is where your trial begins," Ryan said, pointing to a narrow canyon opening between two jagged cliffs. "Once you enter, you will not be allowed to leave until you reach the other side. It is a journey of 2 days, if you are fast, but the path is full of dangers." Markin adjusted the pack on his back. "What kind of dangers?" Ryan's eyes narrowed. "The desert has teeth. Some of them you will see, and predators, stone lizards, and the shadow hawks above. Others you will not heed that steals your strength, winds that erase your path. But the worst danger is the canyon's heart. That is where the trial of honor truly begins." Markin studied the canyon entrance. The rock walls looked like the ribs of a giant beast, waiting to swallow him. "And if I fail," Ryan gave a short shrug, "then you will be just another name in the wind. Many have tried. Few return. Even fewer pass." From behind them came the sound of hooves on stone. Markin turned to see a small group of Velari riders approaching. At their front was a tall figure in silver armor, Queen Thalira herself. The riders stopped a few steps away, and the queen dismounted in one graceful motion. She walked toward Markin, her armor catching the fading light. "I came to see if you would hesitate before the trial," she said. "I won't," Markin replied. Her golden eyes studied him closely. "Courage is one thing. Stubbornness is another. In this canyon, your cleverness will matter more than your strength. The Velari value both. If you reach the other side, I will know you are worthy to stand beside me." Markin met her gaze. "Then I will reach it." Thalira tilted her head slightly, as if testing the truth of his words. Then she stepped back. "Ryan will watch from a distance, but he will not help you. Once you enter, your survival will be your own. Go." Without another word, Markin stepped toward the canyon entrance. The wind rushed past his ears, carrying the low whistle of air between the cliffs. As he crossed the threshold, the sounds of the city and the queen's riders faded away. The first stretch of the canyon was narrow, the walls rising high above him. Shafts of light broke through cracks, painting the stone in pale gold. Markin moved carefully, scanning for movement. His footsteps echoed softly. After an hour, the path widened into a basin filled with jagged rocks. He spotted strange markings on the ground, wide, circular impressions in the sand. Something large had passed here recently. The sound came before the sight, a low, rumbling hiss. From behind a cluster of rocks, a sand predator emerged. Its long body was covered in hard scales the color of rust, and its mouth was a ring of sharp teeth. Markin's pulse quickened. He unhooked the small plasma cutter from his belt. It wasn't a weapon meant for fighting, it was for repairs, but in the desert, anything could become a weapon. The predator circled him, moving with unnatural speed over the sand. Markin waited until it lunged, then dove to the side, slashing at its flank with the cutter. The blade of light tore through a patch of scales, and the creature recoiled with a screech. Markin didn't waste a chance. He grabbed a fist-sized rock and hurled it at the creature's head. The predator stumbled, then turned and slithered away into the shadows. He breathed heavily but allowed himself a small smile. "One problem down," he muttered. The suns dipped lower, and the desert air began to cool. Markin found a small alcove in the canyon wall to rest. He drank from his water flask sparingly. Ryan had warned him that the trial would test his endurance as much as his skill. As he sat, he noticed movement high above. Dark shapes glided silently between the cliff's shadow hawks. Their wings were long and narrow, their eyes sharp as knives. Markin knew they hunted in silence, diving at their prey without warning. He reached into his pack and pulled out a thin, reflective blanket from his survival kit. Laying it over himself, he blended into the rocky ground. Moments later, a shadow passed overhead, followed by the sound of a powerful wing beat. The hawk's talons scraped the stone just inches from his head, but finding no exposed target, it soared back into the sky. Markin waited until the danger passed, then continued deeper into the canyon. By the time night came, the desert had turned cold enough for his breath to mist in the air. The sky above was a river of stars, brighter than anything he had ever seen on Earth. He built a small fire from dried thorn branches and sat close, listening to the quiet. Somewhere in the distance, a howl echoed through the canyon. It was long and low, the kind of sound that made the hair on his neck rise in the flickering light of his fire. Markin thought of the Queen's words, "We respect deeds, not promises." Passing this trial wasn't just about earning her respect, it was about proving to himself that humans could stand alongside the galaxy's strongest warriors. At dawn, Markin packed his gear and moved on. The canyon began to change walls, grew steeper, the floor narrowed, and strange plants with silver leaves clung to the rocks. The air grew warmer again, and the sound of rushing water echoed ahead. He followed the sound until he reached a narrow bridge of stone crossing a deep chasm. At the far side, the canyon's walls formed a great arch. Ryan's words came back. To him, the heart of the canyon is where the true trial begins. Markin stepped onto the bridge, feeling the stone shift slightly under his weight. Halfway across, a sharp cracking sound split the air. A section of the bridge crumbled, forcing him to leap forward. He landed hard, just as the rest of the bridge collapsed into the abyss. There was no way back now. He stood before the arch, staring into the darkness beyond. Somewhere in that shadow waited the final challenge, the one that would decide if he walked out of this canyon as a Valari ally or not at all. Taking a deep breath, Markin stepped inside. The darkness inside the arch was complete. For a moment, Markin could hear nothing but the faint drip of water somewhere deep ahead. His eyes adjusted slowly, revealing a tunnel carved by ancient forces. The walls were damp and covered in strange, glowing moss. He took careful steps forward, his boots scraping on uneven stone. The air here was cooler but heavy, as if it carried the weight of many years. Somewhere in the distance, he heard a faint scratching sound. Markin stopped, listening. The sound grew louder, quick, sharp movements against stone from the shadows. Ahead, several small shapes emerged. At first, they looked like lizards, but their bodies were covered in armor like plates, and their eyes shone red in the dim light. Stone crawlers. Ryan had warned him about them, creatures that moved in packs and could climb walls faster than a human could run. Markin pulled a small flare from his pack and lit it. The sudden burst of orange light made the crawlers hesitate, their eyes blinking. Against the brightness, Markin took the chance to move quickly down the tunnel, keeping the flare high. But the creatures followed, clicking their sharp claws against the stone. The tunnel opened into a wide cavern with a pool of still water at the center. The crawlers spread out, cutting off his path. Markin's mind raced, fighting all of them would be suicide. Instead, he hurled the flare into the far corner of the cavern. The creatures rushed toward the light, giving him the opening he needed to slip through a narrow side passage. He ran until the sound of their claws faded behind him. The passage ended in a slit of light, and Markin stepped out into the open again. The canyon walls rose high above, jagged like the teeth of a giant trap. The ground here was flat, but scattered with massive boulders, each one shaped by wind and time. Markin scanned the sky, clear for now, but he knew the shadow hawks could return at any moment. He moved quickly from rock to rock, staying in cover. As he approached a larger boulder, he heard a deep rumble beneath his feet. The sand shifted suddenly, and a massive shape burst upward, a sandworm, its mouth wide enough to swallow a manhole. The creature's body twisted through the air before crashing down, sending waves of sand in every direction. Markin barely rolled aside in time. The worm's pale skin shimmered in the sun, and its rows of teeth glistened like knives. Markin's heart pounded. He remembered something from his mission briefing. Sandworms were nearly blind, relying on vibrations to sense their prey. That meant if he stayed still, it might lose track of him. He froze, controlling his breathing. The worm's head swayed slowly, searching. Markin took a single step toward a nearby rock. Too loud. The creature lunged, and Markin sprinted for cover. Thinking quickly, he pulled a small charge from his belt, one of the emergency signal devices. He threw it far to his left. The device hit the ground and began to beep loudly, sending vibrations through the sand. The worm turned instantly toward the sound and struck, its massive body disappearing beneath the sand again. Markin didn't wait to see if it would return. He ran until his legs burned. Hours passed. The sun climbed high, baking the canyon in unbearable heat. Markin's water flask was nearly empty, and sweat soaked his shirt. The dessert tested not just his skill, but his will to keep moving. Finally, he reached a stretch of canyon where the ground was dotted with strange silver plants. Their leaves shone faintly, and at their base were small, round pods filled with liquid. Markin hesitated. Alien plants could be dangerous, but thirst made the choice for him. He cut one pod open and tasted the liquid. Cool, slightly sweet water filled his mouth. Relief washed over him, and he filled his flask before moving on. The next obstacle came without warning. As Markin rounded a bend, he saw a narrow path along the cliff wall. It was the only way forward. The drop below was dizzying far enough to end him instantly. He tested the first few steps. The stone was solid, but the ledge was barely wider than his boots. Every gust of wind made him press himself closer to the wall, halfway across. The sound of beating wings reached his ears. He looked up to shadow hawks were circling above, their sharp cries echoing against the cliffs. One hawk dove, its talons reaching for him. Markin dropped flat against the ledge, feeling the rush of air as the creature passed just above him. It wheeled around for another attack. Markin had no weapon suited for fighting a hawk in midair. Instead, he pulled a small reflective panel from his kit and angled it toward the sun. The light flashed upward, catching the hawk's eyes. The creature screeched and veered away, giving him just enough time to reach the end of the ledge. By the time the canyon began to widen again, Markin's body ached from exhaustion. He had survived the crawlers, the worm, the hawks, and the unrelenting heat. But he knew the trial wasn't over. Ahead, the canyon floor rose into a tall slope of red stone. At its top stood a stone gate, its surface carved with Velari symbols. This, he knew, was the exit, but standing between him and the gate was one last challenge. A lone Velari warrior waited there, dressed in light armor and holding a long spear. His stance was calm but ready. When Markin approached, the warrior spoke. "The Queen sends her guardians to face those who come this far, to pass. You must defeat me not with strength alone, but with skill." Markin was tired, but something inside him refused to quit. He picked up a sturdy branch from the ground, using it as a makeshift staff. The duel began. The Velari's spear moved like lightning, forcing Markin to dodge again and again. He used the environment, ducking behind rocks, striking when the warrior overextended. Slowly, he began to read his opponent's movements. Finally, Markin saw his chance. As the spear swept low, he stepped forward, twisting his staff to knock it from the warrior's hands. The weapon clattered to the ground. The Velari stepped back, then gave a slow nod. "You have passed." Markin walked past him toward the gate. His legs were heavy, but his heart was light. The dessert had tested every part of him, and he had endured. Beyond the gate lay the path back to the city and the queen who awaited his return. The Veloran dawn rose slowly over the city of stone towers and glowing streets. Markin woke early, the light filtering through the small room's window, casting long shadows across the floor. Today, he was to meet with Queen Thalira's council, the moment where he would share human tactics and prove that humanity was more than just words. The palace corridors buzzed with energy as Markin walked to the council chamber. Soldiers and advisors moved quickly, their faces serious. Outside the chamber, Ryan waited for him. The scout's eyes held respect, but also concern. "Be ready," Ryan said quietly. "The council is wary. Not everyone trusts a human." Markin nodded. "I'm here to help. That should matter most." The heavy doors of the chamber opened with a slow creak. Inside, a semicircle of Velari leaders sat around a glowing map table, showing the stars and the approaching threat, the Dravik swarm. Their eyes turned toward Markin as he entered. Queen Thalira stood at the head of the table, her golden eyes sharp and steady. "Markin of Earth," she said, "speak, tell us." Why we should trust human ways in war. Markin took a deep breath. The Dravik swarm is unlike any enemy you have faced. They attack in endless waves, using numbers and speed. To fight them, you need more than bravery, you need strategy. Humans have fought many wars and learned how to use their minds to win. A general with silver hair leaned forward. Words are easy. Show us. Markin pointed to the map. Here, at the canyon's edge, the swarm will attack first. They count on overwhelming force. But if we can lead them into a trap, use the terrain against them, we can stop their advance. He explained a plan to collapse narrow canyons, to block the enemy's movement, and to use small, fast strike teams to hit weak points. The council murmured among themselves. Some frowned. Others nodded slowly. Valera raised her hand. Very well. We will test your plan. If it works, you will have earned a place among us. Outside the chamber, the city prepared for war. Weapons were polished, ships were loaded, and warriors trained tirelessly. Markin joined the drills, working alongside Valari soldiers, learning their fighting styles and sharing his own techniques. One afternoon, while resting near the training grounds, Ryan approached him. The Queen watches you closely, Ryan said. She wonders if humans can truly keep up in battle. Markin smiled tiredly. I will prove it. Days passed. Scouts brought news. The Dravik swarm had crossed a nearby system and was moving faster than expected. Then, one evening, alarms blared through the city. The enemy was close. The battle began at dawn. The Valari defenders lined the canyon's edge, their armor shining in the morning sun. Markin stood beside Queen Valera, feeling the weight of the moment. The first wave of the Dravik approached like a dark storm, ships filled with insect-like soldiers moving with terrible speed. The Valari fought fiercely, but the swarm's numbers pushed forward. Markin gave the signal. Explosions shook the canyon as charges detonated, bringing down walls and trapping half the enemy force. In the chaos, Markin moved quickly, coordinating with Valari strike teams. He saved the squad trapped by enemy fire, pulling them to safety. Suddenly, a group of Dravik broke through and charged toward the Queen. Without hesitation, Markin stepped between them and Valera. Using a stun baton, he knocked the closest enemy back, buying time for the Queen's guards to respond. Valera's eyes met his. A brief flash of surprise and respect. The battle raged for hours. The Valari's courage and Markin's tactics began to turn the tide. By nightfall, the Dravik forces were retreating, their swarm broken. Exhausted but victorious, Markin stood among the warriors, knowing this was only the beginning. After the battle, Valera approached Markin. You have fought well. Today, you earn more than respect. You earn trust. Markin nodded. The fight is not over. The Dravik will return. She smiled slightly. Then we will be ready. Together. The morning sun cast a pale light over the Valoran Canyon. The air was thick with tension and the scent of dust. Markin stood beside Queen Valera, his eyes fixed on the horizon where the Dravik swarm was gathering. Thousands of alien ships filled the sky, their dark shapes moving in a swirling cloud. The ground trembled under the weight of their numbers. This was the greatest threat Valora had ever faced. Valera turned to Markin. This is it, the final battle. Are you ready? Markin nodded. I am. The Valari warriors readied their weapons and took their positions along the canyon walls. Markin checked his gear one last time. His human technology was simple compared to the Valari's advanced weapons, but his knowledge of strategy was what mattered now. The first wave of the Dravik surged forward, their ships firing beams of energy that lit up the rocky canyon. Valari shields flared and absorbed the blasts, but some warriors fell. Markin watched the enemy advance and signaled to the strike teams. Hold the line and prepare to fall back when I give the order. The plan was to lure the swarm deep into the canyon, then collapse the walls to trap them. It was dangerous, but it was their only chance. The battle was fierce. Markin fought beside the Valari, using his stun baton to disable enemy fighters. He moved quickly, helping wherever he was needed. As the Dravik pushed deeper, Markin reached the charge detonators hidden among the rocks. His heart pounded as he prepared to trigger the collapse. Suddenly, a group of Dravic soldiers broke through the lines and rushed toward Queen Thalira. Markin reacted without thinking. He charged forward, tackling one enemy to the ground and blocking another with his baton. Thalira fought with fierce grace, her blade flashing in the sunlight. Together, they pushed back the attackers. "Markin, behind you," Ryan shouted. Markin turned just in time to block a blow aimed at his back. He swung his baton and knocked the enemy away. The battle seemed endless. Sweat and dust covered his face, but Markin's resolve did not falter. With a steady hand, Markin triggered the detonators. The canyon walls trembled and cracked. Huge chunks of rock began to fall, blocking the path of the Dravic swarm. Trapped and confused, the enemy forces were forced to retreat. The Velari warriors charged forward, driving them from the canyon dot when the dust settled. The battlefield was silent except for the heavy breathing of the survivors. Thalira approached Markin, her face streaked with dirt but proud. "You have done well, human. Today, you saved Valora." Markin shook his head. "We saved Valora. Together." The queen smiled. "Indeed, together."